Hey everybody, I'm really, really super excited about this one because it's very rare that I get requests of who people want to hear being interviewed. And for this person, I had many requests coming in from all different corners of the world. And so the requests were for Dominic Scaffidi, who and I'm not at all surprised at that actually, because there's such a great energy with Dominic, and anyone who's been at any event, anyone who's done anything with him knows him. Like he's like very present, very in the world, very connected, and so everyone like, oh yes, Dominic. And I'm so glad because also, I'm really interested to talk to you. We met 2017, was it? 2016?
Uh, y- 16, I think it was. Yeah, 16. 2016 was Super Coach.
Super Coach
Yeah.
Academy. And straight away, of course, everyone noticed Dominic. And so we were there for 3Ps, obviously, with Michael. And at the same time, Dominic was talking about law of attraction. He was a HR consultant with an HR advisory and leadership coaching business. And so straight right from the get, and also you were like this sort of glowing light of well-being and good family and all, like a lovely car and lovely clothes. Like you had, like, it was like, oh, okay, who is this? Who is this that's combining all of these worlds in one go? And so I'm really interested in that in particular, like, because I think so much of what we talk about almost runs the risk of taking us out of the world almost and into this sort of place of, well, everything's just thought and there's nothing real. And but then here you are, really like living fully, fully, fully. And so first of all, welcome. So nice.
Well, thank you, Claire. I mean, this was such a hell yes to this conversation because, that you stand out as a highlight for me as well from, my time with, the beginnings. It was the early days of the three principles and coming across it. And then, we were immersed for a good almost 1 year or whatever that was we were in LA and New York and London and back to LA and you were there throughout, and of course all the other in-betweens that we got to know each other and connected with each other. And what I noticed about you was the sort of really thoughtful depth in terms of the exploration. You weren't you weren't being surface about it. You had really I just resonated with your questions, and I resonated with where you were going. Every time you spoke, I just followed right along. I was glued. And so, yeah. And then it's so exciting to see what's happened since. And all the books you've written and all of that's happened is that's amazing. And of course, you said you've heard about me, but I hear about you all the time. So all the time I'm hearing about, well, Claire said, did you, in her book, Claire has said, right? So I'm hearing about you all the time. Yeah.
That's so lovely. That's so nice to hear. Thank you, love. So tell me, can we start by you introducing us to all the worlds that you're in terms of understanding of human behavior and impact and fulfillment, happiness? Give us like a overview of the different lands that you're occupying.
Yeah. I mean, today, the strongest teachings that most influence me today are, the teachings of Abraham Hicks,
Mm.
which is a channeled teaching by a woman called Esther Hicks, and she channels a collective consciousness called Abraham. They give themselves the name of Abraham. They are not a person or a personality. They are a collective consciousness. So many points of consciousness streaming and flowing. And she channels that, and she's been channeling Abraham for I think more than 40 years. I think so, or close to 40 years. And I came across those teachings coincidentally at the time I left, a 20-year corporate career. I was an executive in a large organization in human resources, and that was 20 years. And then that was around 2008. And so that's been about 15 years now from when I came across those teachings. So that's a huge influence. And then, by the way, that teaching really strongly emphasizes the law of attraction, which is a law of energy and all of that. Unfortunately, what most people know about the law of attraction is today mainly what they picked up from a 90-minute video.
Right.
Or a book. And the 90-minute video was called The Secret. And that one is the one that most of them kind of first heard about this, or the book or whatever. And so that would be like having a complete understanding of non-duality because I watched a 90-minute video that told me all about it.
Mhm.
And so, and by the way, and says I'm just paralleling this, right? Or I watched a 90-minute video that told me about the three principles, the teachings of Sydney Banks, and I know all about that. I've been using it. This is the other thing. So I've been using non-duality, since then, right? Or I know people who tried using non-duality and then they stopped because it wasn't working, like that sort of silliness, right? So so that teaching strongly influences me, is the teachings of Abraham Hicks. And then what happened afterwards was the teachings of of Sydney Banks, so known as the three principles. And what was perfect about that is when that came out or up for me, when I came across that, I would say that it cleaned up my misunderstandings that were in the teachings of Abraham Hicks.
Okay.
So there was a lot of bullshit I had in that teaching.
What would
Like
what would that be?
it's more belief, and because they're very different teachers. And with Abraham Hicks, I'll say more about it as we go, but they'll get more and they'll offer processes, or they'll offer this kind of thing, and whereas in three principles that's never done. And so it's easy to sort of hear at the level that you can hear,
Yeah.
and then understand at the level that you're understanding. And so by the time when Sydney Banks came around, and that I learned and started to see, the thing with the three principles was its simplicity. And so what happened was I realized instantly, like not instantly, but once I listened to a little bit, I'm like, oh my God, this is true. It was like, this is so true and so obvious, but it's so simple, right? And then a whole discord happened within me. I'm like, hang on a second. Yeah, this is true. This is obvious, right, to me. And then I'd hear or listen to things or what I thought I understood about Abraham Hicks. And then I'd go, hang on a second. If this is true, then how can that be true? And it couldn't be. Like, you couldn't require a process to do anything. It's all about understanding. But wait a minute, why would Abraham Hicks talk about processes, or why would they offer this? And so I was having this conflict because I couldn't understand. What didn't make sense to me is, how could this pure source energy consciousness, which is really an infinite intelligence expressing through in this teaching, how can it be so stupid? That was my, I mean, it's obvious that this is wrong. It's obvious that that cannot be, right? And so now, what you might have noticed is that most people who come across the teachings of Sydney Banks, what they tend to do, a large part of the community, is they go, oh my God, I've discovered the truth. Everything I've ever known and come across is a lie. And this is now the truth. And so what they do is they dismiss and discard everything, and then have now taken a vote amongst all of the things that they are familiar with. They vote, they pick this one, and this is now the truth, and everything else is made wrong. And so I was at peril of doing the same thing. Obviously, I could have done the same thing. And I don't know why. I can't really quite explain why I couldn't do that or wouldn't do that. It's not like I intended not to do that. It's not like I was wed to anything. I was just only interested in the value of it. But what I noticed is, as I immersed myself in three principles and that understanding, is I kept going back to Abraham. So I kept, and after a while, I'm like, okay, why do you keep listening to that? Like, why do you keep going back to that and listening to that? Like, why? What is up with this? And there was something, and there was something there, and there was something. And so what slowly started to happen is I'm like, oh my God, I haven't been understanding this right. I have not understood entirely what they've been saying. And so then I began to notice things like that every time they spoke of a process, they would say things like, and this is not necessary.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like, wait a minute, when did they say that?
Isn't it?
Why didn't I hear this before? And then they would talk about things. They would talk about, meditation, or they'd talk about this other thing. And then they would say, and none of this is necessary. And I never heard this. I've never heard this before in the teachings. But these teachings are like 40 years old, 30 years old, 20 years old. It was always in there. And I'm going back and listening, and I can hear it. But it's like, why didn't I pick this up? Oh, because they can't be serious. They probably meant, just whatever. I didn't see. But after three principles, I could see. And I'm like, so what's being pointed at that's deeper than this? What's the source of what they're talking about? And of course, that was blatantly obvious. It had always been in the teaching all the way through. And I kind of skipped over that part and got to the part about, how do I make money with this? So that's it's more in the practicality of it. And only later went back for the spiritual understanding. So that's the truth.
Then you could go back. Oh, brilliant. And so keep going then. So you're saying that now it's the main focus is still through Abraham Hicks and the
So Abraham Hicks is huge. The three principles is huge. Because of you, I became quite interested in non-duality. And so that, I would say, everything I delved into in terms of in non-duality, especially your expression of it, how you've articulated. Rupert Spira is another one I just resonate completely. That's another one of these where you kind of go, oh, well, but this is true. What this points to is true. And so that I would say there's those first two that I'm strongly grounded in. And then non-duality for me is such a pure teaching as well, that it kind of offers a really good check. Like I kind of check anything I'm saying off of, but there is only one. It's consciousness. That's all it like. So I kind of check anything off that as well. So there's something about the blending of all of these. It's almost like having something pointed at from three different directions, and being able to see it more fully. I don't know how else to
Yeah.
describe it.
Can I ask you, with those three different inputs, what's the model that you have in your mind of how reality is or experience happens or the world works, or what's going, like how would you teach to someone on a course? What would you say?
Well, the truth is there's nothing here, right? So the truth is there is only consciousness. There is only a no thing. There is only a consciousness, an awareness. And it's how Sydney Banks described as the energy of all things, an essence or an energy that forms or is the essence of all things. So that's the truth. That so but I really like how Sid then said more about it, although you can't say any more about it, but he did. I'm glad he did, right? So when you say, so the essence of all things, this energy, then it forms all things. It's the essence of all things. So when you kind of come back to us and in this more finite perspective, and there's a lot of things, right? And some are complicated, like this computer and all of this stuff. So this essence or energy of all things has, you could say, enormous intelligence, but we would have to say infinite intelligence, because it is forming and the relationships and interactions. It is an infinite intelligence. And so that, and by the way, it can get even more practical. You can say, take a look at you, right? You're physical. Yeah, we get that. Oh, but you're thinking too. So there's sort of this more non-physical part of you, which is, this thinking going on. And then there's this other thing, which is sort of a bit unexplainable, which is the fact that you're alive and you exist. Or what is that? Well, practically, we know that there's a difference between me and a dead body. For example, if I think about this perspective I hold in this physical, right? So there's a difference between me and a dead body, and that difference is an energy. The difference is an energy, a consciousness, and that energy or that consciousness, like if this body, if I cut a finger, it will heal itself. And I know I'm not doing that, right? I know I'm not even doing the breathing, like that something is doing it. And so whatever it is very intelligent. So that principle that Sid said, which is mind, is practical too. Like, it's not like it's hidden from you. It's obvious. It's here, right? And it's as close as your breath, and you can feel it, and it's apparent everywhere. But an infinite intelligence, an energy that's intelligence, or an essence that intelligence is kind of like, there's a difference. And what Sid said is, he added a principle or a quality. I don't know what that is, but that it is conscious. So it's not like an intelligence the way you would have an intelligence or information, let's say on a spreadsheet, which is dead. Right? This is conscious. So what's that mean? Well, it's aware. It's aware, second principle. But aware of what? Well, aware of itself, because We just said that this is the energy or an essence or an intelligence of all things. There is nothing else to be aware of. So it is aware, it is conscious. Conscious of what? Conscious only of itself. There's nothing else to be conscious of. And so that's so boring, really, like when you're at that state. And then Sid said the creative principle of thought, but I describe it like this again. If we can buy into or see the truth of that there is this essence, and it has an aware essence, a consciousness. Without adding anything more, we can state that third principle like this. So I'll make two statements, and in the second statement, the third principle will be introduced, but I will not make a change in what I'm saying, right? So there is a consciousness, an intelligence that is conscious and aware of itself. That was the first statement. We can buy it. And I can make the same statement another time. There is this intelligence or consciousness that is aware of every aspect of itself. I haven't changed the statement at all. It is aware of itself. It is aware of every aspect of itself, has no change in that statement. But in the second way that I made the statement, aware of every aspect of itself, introduces the principle of thought. And the principle of thought is a creative principle. And that is every aspect of consciousness is known by consciousness. And unless every aspect of consciousness is known by consciousness, then consciousness is not infinite and it is not infinitely intelligent. It is not all knowing. So in order for it to be all knowing, it must know all that it is. And so the one consciousness is all that is, and it knows all that it is. So there's in those two statements is it introduces the creative principle, and it also introduces an element of this, which is what has it be eternal and infinite? Because without that last bit, it would not be eternal and infinite. It would be a static, finite, known thing. So the only reason anything is infinite is because it is expanding. It is expanding and becoming more. Well, that presents a bit of a problem, don't you think? Because if we say that this is all there is, this is all that is, how can you say expanding? What would it ever become? It is all that is. And so that presents a bit of a problem, right? If you say that. Well, there's only one thing it could become. There's only one thing it could expand into. And it would have to become more of what it is. It would have to be more of itself. This is the only way it could expand, the only way that that universe the only way to be infinite is to expand and be more of what it is already. It could only be more of what it already is. If it became anything other than what it already is, then it is not all that is. It cannot be all that is. It's becoming this other thing that it is not right now, right? So that, and so that it was interesting, like this implication that infinite implies expansion is interesting. And that's kind of what that creative principle and bit.
Very nice. Beautifully explained, Dominic. Thank you. And how how within that do you then understand this sort of perspective of a Dominic and a business and house and car?
Yeah.
And where do you see that fitting now?
So in any aspect, Sydney Banks called us, right, people, human beings. He said, who you are is a microscopic aspect of the energy of all things. You're an aspect of that, an expression of that. Abraham Hicks, the language they use is who you really are is pure source energy consciousness. Who you really are is pure source energy consciousness. And a part of you, has focused into this physical experience.
Very nice.
While the greater part of you remains non-physically focused. So how do we explain us? I guess a metaphor is probably easier. Is if I am all that is, it's a metaphor, so I'm obviously not, but let's say the metaphor is that it begins and ends with me, right? So I am all that is, it's all in my mind and all of that. And I am going to write a book, and in the book there's Dominic. Then this begins to explain Dominic, right? So it's imagined, it's a Dominic, and then as I write that and kind of imagine through, there's a whole sort of unfolding and a story and all of that, and there is an interplay between my focus as Dominic and who I really am, which is far more than Dominic is, but who I really am. And there is an interplay because all of my intelligence is available to me as I experience Dominic, but I'm not using all at the same time, or I could not experience this, fun and interesting experience that is Dominic. This, I couldn't do it if I was using all of it or had all of it projected or expressed through.
Yeah. And would you say then that the is the only reason for suffering that Dominic entity gets believed and the true source gets forgotten?
Yeah, well, I mean, to be really, 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 really accurate, there's no way to forget and no way to, right? Like you can't, because that Dominic has no independent anything.
No.
There's no independent consciousness. It's a focus. And so, but maybe the way I've come to understand it in a way that potentially can bring that is that there's two perspectives. You could not be without two perspectives. There's a perspective that is you, and then who you really are. So who you really are comes from, the perspective that you think you are is sourced. It is sourced in who you really are. Just the very idea of the think you are is a thought. It's coming from the source of it, comes from who you really are. So now you have two perspectives. And I often, when I'm teaching, I'll often say is who you really are, who you are. Who you are is far more than you think, and forever will be. Forever who you are. So you will experience or know yourself as who you think you are, and who you really are is far more than you think, and forever will be. So because who you are is beyond all that you can think, beyond what you think, beyond all that you can think. So ultimately, who you are becomes simply and only a knowing, which I'm distinguishing from a thinking. Right? Oh, it's a really big thought. Really big thought. Yeah, that's still not big enough.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm really big, really big. Yeah, that's still not big enough, right? So because it goes beyond that.
So clear how you describe it. And does that mean that you don't ever, so say with your clients, either in your coaching business or in HR solutions, does it mean that so in your HR solutions, what is that interplay then that you have between a world of, laws and protocols and policies and this knowing? How for you as a conduit, I guess, of both,
Yeah.
how does that happen within your experience?
Well, first, to be clear, in my interaction with my corporate clients and executive coaching clients, all they get is what they ask. All they get is what they're asking for. All they get is the questions they are asking answered through a pretty thorough perspective. But I cannot answer a question that is not being asked. I cannot answer a question that is not being asked. So if the consciousness that is you through your life experience has not evoked a curiosity, a wondering about something, you have no capacity to hear an answer to something you are not asking.
Mm.
You have
Mm-hmm.
no capacity to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
This life experience, this particular perspective of consciousness has no opening to
Mm.
hear something that is beyond where it's looking.
Mm.
Now, it doesn't make you wrong. It doesn't make you wrong. You may be so interested in software programming and all of that. And, if you and I interacted, you can talk to me all day about it, and I have no questions.
Mm. Mm.
You tell me all about it. You can talk to me about all kinds of things, right? I have no questions.
Mm.
So you cannot answer what the truth is about good software design.
Mm.
So I don't have any question about it.
I love
So
never heard that before. That's such a fresh way of looking. I love it. Yeah. I love
yeah.
makes
So this is very important when it comes to coaching. I'm a pure coach. I follow an ICF master certified coach, right? A credential. And in pure coaching, you're always on the client's agenda. So, but this is also very consistent with the teachings of Abraham, which is a slight nuance and a very important nuance to many other teachings, almost every other teaching that I've encountered in spiritual exploration, and in particular with the teachings of Sydney Banks and what I notice in the 3P community. A lot in the 3P community and in many spiritual teachings are interested in saving the world, helping others, alleviating suffering, and all kinds of things like that. And Abraham is very clear: the world does not need saving. The world does not need saving. You did not focus into this physical experience to save a broken world. The world is not broken. You are not here to save the people who are misguided or people who are off doing whatever. Each of them is connected to an infinite intelligence. Each of them has the source, which is the source of all things, the source of all that is. They are not here to be saved by others who have seen so much more deeply than they have, or who have explored so much deeply than they have, and thank God for us, so that we can go back and help all of them, right? So that is one thing refreshing in that teaching, is to say, get your oxygen mask on and you look after yourself, because the only way you will be of benefit in this world is if you are a demonstration and an example of what it is to live life awake to that source consciousness that is you, and live it in this physical experience. You will teach by the clarity of your example. You will not teach by the confusion of your words.
Love that, Dominic. I love it. Really makes sense. So would you say that I mean, if for you, is there any purpose in that the sort of manifestation within a limited experiential space?
So the purpose, I'll go the shortcut and then I have to justify it.
Okay.
I have to justify it coming back. The purpose of life, the purpose of existence, but the purpose of physical life for sure, but the purpose of existence is for joy.
Love that.
It's for bliss. It is bliss. That's the purpose. There's no point to it. Doesn't actually get anything done that needs to be done.
Doesn't work.
It doesn't. It doesn't build anything that's so useful and important that's required for any reason. The entire purpose of it all is bliss. It's joy.
Love that. Also, you're the first person I've ever heard say that so boldly. I love that. Yeah, totally love it.
So now see if we can justify it. Let's see if we can justify this.
Good.
Because I'm a real geek when it comes to this. That's one thing about my style is I know you can't explain this. I know you can't explain it in words, but I am not going to let that stop me. So there's no way I'm going to let this stop me.
We're getting the benefit, and I want to hear everything about joy and bliss. So tell us it all.
Right. So it kind of goes back to that idea of the two perspectives. So there is all that is focused as an aspect of itself. So there's an infinite and a finite within it. So infinite is made of every finite aspect of itself, and there are infinite finite aspects of itself. Now therein, and this is almost like physics or math. It must work like this. There's not like an alternative or anything else. If you take any finite aspect of all. So this consciousness, which is aware of itself and aware of every aspect of itself, that statement is the same statement. But when we look at aware of any aspect of itself, means to be aware or to know an aspect of itself, you do not know anything you are not experiencing. You cannot know anything you do not experience. The only thing you know is what you experience. Everything else is a belief. Everything else is some other thing. But what you know, you experience. And so if you take that consciousness focused on an aspect of itself, to know that aspect is to experience it. And so it experiences this finite aspect of itself along with every other experience. And therefore, there is a totality of experiencing all that it is.
Yeah.
But let's go back to that little aspect. As you experience, in order to experience any aspect of itself, experience is relative. Experience is relative. In other words, this aspect relative to all that I am.
Yeah.
It's relative. This aspect relative to all that I am. But as I continue to experience 8 billion aspects, we're just here on with people. I mean, then you get animals, we're into trillions, and minerals and all that. And then if you get to other planets, right? Like, so you like imagine, right? So now I experience this aspect relative to all that I am, but also experience this aspect relative to other aspects. So anyway, what's this lead to practically? You cannot have consciousness flowing through this physical body, flowing through any finite aspect of the all, without flowing through and experiencing itself, which means experiencing the contrast within consciousness.
Yeah.
Which is all the same thing, but again, through a finite, it's a relative experience. So experiencing the contrast without evoking a desire for more, a desire for more of itself. In other words, as I feel or experience a scarcity, as I experience scarcity just because of the way that I look at things, or this perspective, the angle that I've taken, I experience scarcity. There is something in that experience. It's causing like a feeling that is, let's call it a pain or a suffering feeling. Well, why is that? Because it's disharmonious.
So cool.
Disharmonious. That I don't have enough money and I can't do anything that I want. I really want to do things in life and I can't do things in life. I'd really like to contribute and make a difference in a lot of things, but I can't do it because I don't have enough money. So that perspective has taken a view, that thinking, that perspective, the feeling of it is disharmonious. We would call it suffering. We would call it disharmony. But what is it disharmonious with? In order for it to be disharmonious, it must be disharmonious with something. And what it is disharmonious with is the truth. That's what it's disharmonious with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the truth is not this. So the truth is that who I really am, that the truth is there's only abundance. There's only an abundance of all things. There's only possibility. There is only my power and ability to do anything. no, I don't have enough money. And there's no way that I could. I don't even know how to talk right. And so I don't think I could actually influence people because I don't have the capability to blah, 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 right? It's like, but the feeling tells you this is a lie.
Mm. Mm.
There's a disharmony to this. This is not the truth of you. And so as you feel that, this broader perspective is a holder and knower of the truth of you. So in our life, we feel desire. Most people think that desire is this thing out there that they want. And by the way, it's misunderstood as that, right?
Mm.
I want to be a speaker and I want to make a lot of money and I want to do whatever, which is the closest interpretation you've been able to make from your finite perspective of a true desire.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a true desire for something, but as best you can do, given your conditioning and all that, you've grown up with and understood, is like, it's about making money and speaking and doing these things and whatever.
Yeah.
But the truth is something different, which is for expression, for expansion.
Yeah.
And so what you're feeling is the truth of you wanting greater expression through you.
Yeah.
And so that is now, from a free will perspective, let's call it, which is an awkward statement, I know. But this free will perspective would say you've been gifted the freedom to allow or resist that truth. You've
Mm.
been gifted the freedom to allow or resist that truth. Well, really, by your focus, because really your freedom is to focus. You can focus anywhere and you can focus on anything. And you could focus on what this contrasting experience is. I don't have any money and, whatever it is. Or you can focus inside to the truth, the source that's in. And you're not a robot. So you weren't made a robot to carry out the thoughts and the orders from the all.
Mm.
You weren't done like that. You were, as you focus here, you are the all focusing here, and there is only freedom within all that is. And if the nature of all that is freedom, then every aspect within the all is free, or the all is not free.
Yeah.
Every point of consciousness is pure freedom, or consciousness is not free. So it either has that nature or it does not, right? Can't say, well, this little speck is not free. This little speck
Yes.
is, yeah. And in order to be free, it must be entirely free to choose even bondage, which is even an experience of no freedom. And so you can think your way to no freedom, and you will experience what it is like to not be free, to be conditioned, to have no choices, and all of that. You can get yourself to a full experience of that, right? So
Dominic, it's so brilliant. And I'm so gutted because I'm looking at the time and I've got to go in like
yes,
3 minutes.
sorry.
No,
Yes,
but I
this
want
happens.
I want like 37 hours just listening and asking, and I've got like another 25 questions to ask you. Oh, but I love every word you're saying, and I love the way you're saying it. I love the geeky.
It's geeky. It is geeky for sure.
How does this like? How can I put this into words as close to the sort of wordless truth as it possibly can be? So brilliant. So brilliant. What a treat for our podcast. So
Yeah, this is fun.
part two, part three, part four, part five.
I would love to. Yeah, we'd love to. Your questions are really great, and they're pointing us in really, really useful, deep directions. Like I said, what I like is that you're definitely pointing to things we can't speak about, and I will not let that stop me. So
Yeah. It's wonderful to hear these things being said in such a fresh way. and it's really fresh. It's really fresh and clear, and yeah, every word is just like, oh, that's so cool. It's yeah. I'm so gutted that we have to end this. But uh, yes, I know there will be many requests for a second appearance from Dominic in the Clare podcast. So thank you, love. Thank you so much. Thanks for
Thank you.
that so generously. That will make a huge difference to everyone listening to this. So it's
Wonderful.
enormous what you're saying, and I'm so grateful. I'm so happy to see you as well. So
Yeah, really nice to be reconnected and in live and talking. So yeah, wonderful.
yeah,
Thank you so much, Claire.
thank you,
Look
Dom.
forward to more. All
Yeah,
right.
I love.
Bye.